How's it going, everybody? I'm going to be showing you some budget black commanders in this video. The first one's going to be Shirei. It's a little expensive on the mana curve of 5 mana, however the ability is sweet. Whenever a creature power 1 or less is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next step if this card is still on the battlefield. You obviously need creatures with power 1 or less, however the amount of creatures that have enter the battlefield effects and dying effects that have 1 power are numerous. So you run cards like Doom Dissenter. Whenever it dies, you get a 2/2 black zombie. Whenever Dusk Legion Zealot dies, you get to draw a card. And you're definitely going to play something like Viscera Seer, where you can actually sacrifice your creatures at instant speed, or just some other sacrificing outlets to make sure you're able to destroy your own creatures to get that additional value. This commander creates consistent value, and I highly recommend at least giving it a shot. Next up we have Drana. It's a 3-mana flying first strike vampire. Whenever it does combat damage to a player, you're going to put a +1 counter on each attacking creature you control. I think this commander works best with vampire strategies, and especially if you can build a really wide board with attacking creatures, so obviously you're going to be able to put additional counters on those creatures if Drana deals combat damage to the player. Cards like Vampire Nighthawk and Gifted Aetherborn are both vampires. They also have Death Touch and Lifelink. Necropolis Regent's a little expensive on the mana curve. However, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to put that many counters on it. So it kind of pairs well with Drana, but if you like vampires, definitely check this card out. Turok is a little bit less budget, but it's still a great card to have in your collection. You can throw this in any black commander deck and it's going to have some value. For 2 mana, it's a 2/1 with protection from white. Whenever an opponent discards a card, you're going to put a +1 counter on this card. For 2 extra mana, you can kick it and make your opponent discard 2 cards at random, and it will obviously enter the battlefield with 2 additional counters. This card doesn't have to be built around a discard only deck. Turok just works well as a nice cheap 2 mana commander that just has an additional benefit of growing in size if you do play discard spells. Black obviously has a lot of cheap discard spells like this one. If you want to build a discard only deck, Megrim's a pretty good option. It's going to ping your opponent every time they discard. And this last card is pretty awesome because at the beginning of your upkeep, each player is going to discard a card. I do have a discard deck tech on this channel if you're interested in checking out Turok. I think discard is the best way to build around this commander, but again, it's a nice cheap commander with some additional benefits. And if you want to play black, I think it's a pretty good option. Next up is Massacre Girl. She's a 5-mana 4/4 with Menace, and whenever she enters the battlefield, each other creature is going to get -1 to the end of the turn. Whenever a creature dies, each creature other than this card is going to get -1 to the end of the turn. This is kind of just a more well-rounded card. I don't think there's really any synergy you need to build around. If you time this card right, you can potentially board wipe everybody. This does also work well with dying triggers. Grave Betrayal is like $2 or $3, however the card works pretty well if you want to build a deck specifically around Massacre Girl. It's a little expensive on the mana curve too, but whenever a creature you don't control dies, you're going to return to the battlefield under your control with an additional +1 counter. So if you are able to board wipe, it's going to be insane value for you. Something like Falcon Wrath Noble is going to be a good card to add to a deck like this. It has an effect whenever this card dies or another creature dies. Target player is going to lose 1 life and you gain 1 life. All around, I think Massacre Girl is a good, well-rounded card as a commander. However, it might even be better just in the main board of any commander deck. Next up is the Lord of Luxury. 4 mana 2/3 with Death Touch. Whenever it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library. Then you get to exile 1 of them face down and put the rest in the bottom of that library in any order. You can then look at that card at any time and cast it from exile with any color mana you want. Again, this card kind of works well with almost any strategy. It has a way of disrupting your opponent, also seeing what they have in their deck, kind of giving you some more information. Also maybe what cards they're not going to draw next. This creature disrupts your opponent while simultaneously giving you card advantage. What's also pretty sweet is if you're able to hit one of their combo pieces or one of their big creatures, it's sort of like a form of removal, but not really. If you want to play black and you don't know what card to run, I think this is a perfect option. I decided to show cards like Undying Evil. Whenever a creature dies, you can use one of these cards and target that card that's dying, and it gets returned back to the battlefield. Having these cards in the deck is going to be a good way to make sure you're getting additional value from the commander without actually needing to cast it from the command zone. Super good card, fits in any strategy. If you're looking to live life a little more lavishly, we got a little expensive card here. You got Veto Thorn of Dusk Rose. For 3 mana, it's a 1/3. Whenever you gain life, your target opponent's going to lose that much life. You can also give your creatures a lifelink. This commander obviously works very well in lifelink decks. If you run creatures like Vampire Nighthawk or Nighthawk Scavenger, whenever you deal damage to your opponent, you're obviously going to gain life, but then deal additional damage from the commander. This card also works really well if you have a way of gaining extra life when things happen. If you have a card like Sangromancer out, whenever a creature and opponent dies, or whenever an opponent discards a card, you're going to gain 3 life, which also makes your opponent lose 3 life. That 6-point swing in life is pretty brutal. This card might be $6, but the potency that it brings to the table is pretty ruthless. These are just a few commanders I think are pretty good options if you want to play black. Let me know some other ones down below. If you're looking to play Magic the Gathering on a budget, definitely check out more videos on our channel. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for some more. I'll see you later.